Did you fly out of there or walk?
We walked out of there.
Out of Sheer?
Oh, no, they sent a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plane came and got us, which they didn't have to do had we gone the other way.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the season. I think it was early in September. I was off duty and I went back to college.
And where were you going to school then?
I went to Bozeman. Well, the first year I was in college, and that was my pre-jumping year. I was at Missoula. I was in Forestry at Missoula, and there I played football. And there I got banged up. I ended up with a punctured lung.
Playing football?
Playing football, because in those days there were no healthy male individuals walking the streets, at least going to school. So anybody that could answer to a hip call on the field could play football. And as a result, I ended up in the hospital and finished out that year in Bozeman, where I went the second year. And there I was in wildlife and forestry.
Well, what'd you get your degree in?
I didn't get my degree. I met this gal from Hinsdale by Glasgow, and I told her I was going to go back jumping, and she said, "I don't think you are." I wasn't smart enough to understand what she had said, but when the preacher says, "What do you say?" I say, "I do." I understood well. That was 65 years ago. And the reason we're still married, I think, is that I didn't forget to say, "Yes, dear."
Well, back when you showed up, then you were a forestry student, and there were a lot of ex-paratroopers in the Smokejumpers.
Yeah, they were.
Well, what was your impression when you got there to 9 Mile? I mean, were you kind of unique in that you weren't a paratrooper, or what?
Oh no, I was not much younger, if at all younger, than the guys coming back from overseas, the paratroopers. There was no overlording at any time from anybody since I was there. And so when I told people why I wasn't in the service, and I had to explain myself many times.
Yeah.
Why weren't you in the service?
But then that was because of the gunshot wound when you were a kid?
Yeah, and that's why I couldn't get in the service. And so from then on, when people say, why weren't you in the service, I say I was in the jump corps.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And to this day, I have nothing but the greatest respect for those guys that went overseas and did what they did. And I'm sorry I wasn't with them, but I'm here today and lucky to be here, I think.
Well, you were kind of a new breed, because that first year after the war, they brought in hired a lot of paratroopers and a lot of Marines.
Yeah, they did.
And then it started breaking down when the first college forestry students started showing up, and you were one of them, I guess.
Yeah.
Were there many others that were college types that wanted to have a forestry career?
I think there was. I could probably count them on my 10 fingers, but I don't know, maybe I do know how now. Most of the guys in my crew were my age, and I don't remember any of them ever mentioning the war service.
Yeah.
There may well have been, and the guys were trying to forget that anyway. But no, there wasn't many of us that were not. Well, I think it was 1946 that, I don't know if it was the War Department or Washington says, if you won't fight in the war, you can fight for Forest Service. And so, as I remember, they were taking a lot of rejectors. What am I trying to say?
Conscientious objectors.
Conscientious objectors.
Yeah. During the war, yeah.
In 1946. In 1947, there may have been some conscientious objectors there, but I don't remember who they might have been. The rest of them were either boondockers like I had been, or guys in the military.
Well, tell me about Dr. Little. Now, you're familiar with him because he was your family doctor, but he'd been jumping already, hadn't he?
Oh, yes.
So what do you know about him?
Well, he was one of a kind.
He was a physician working in Helena, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Little was very athletic and a very able physician. As I say, he delivered my wife's firstborn. He was the ski doctor up at Marysville. When somebody needed serious attention at the moment, he would be there. He was also, as I understand it, on the world team of skiers that traveled to Europe and elsewhere as the team doctor. And he never spoke much about it, but we knew that he had been there and back, so to speak.
And didn't he keep his gear over there at the jump depot? Didn't he have a walker?
No, he didn't. He didn't keep himself.
But he had been a jumper, hadn't he?
No, only on those injury calls he would jump in when it was necessary.
He didn't jump with you on those rescue jumps?
No, I don't remember him jumping on that. But if it hadn't been for him speaking on my behalf to the Forest Service to become a jumper, I'd have never made it.
Yeah. Because
my wound was still healing in '46. Well, I won't say that. I think because I got in because I hunted, I fished, I worked as a guide, and I still belong in the mountains. I still do hunting and fishing, and all of my children and their children and our great-grandchildren to be, I'm sure, will be the same interest in the outdoors.
Well, do you remember a guy named Art Cochrane?
Oh yes, very well. Art was a big guy. In fact, I can tell you, I have pictures of Art laying down next to a shortwave radio, talking to the plane as it went over. It's in one of these pictures. Yeah, Art was a good friend. He was steady as she go kind of guy. He's comfortable to be around.
And he'd been jumping all through the war, hadn't he, with the jumpers?
As far as I know, he did. I don't know where Art is today, or if he's still alive.
I think he's passed away.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
But he was like a key crew boss or a key member of the overhead back in those days?
That's what we called him, overhead, yeah.
And then you remember Earl Cooley?
Oh yeah. Earl was a pilot, and it was, wasn't it his brother that took one of those Ford Fly motors to the ground up in Bear Canyon in Bob Marshall?
Oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was, yeah, I know, yeah, he was a pilot number one. And,
Well, when you left there, when you left the Jumpers, you got married right away. Is that it?
well, no, I didn't. I got out of the Jumpers in the fall. We weren't married until the following spring. No, I'll take it back. It must have been 2 springs. Yeah, because 1947, 48, I was working in a sawmill at Lincoln.
Oh.
And later at a planing mill at Silver City. That was 48. And then in 49 I was married. And my first job after that was in Shoto, which was a godsend because the Chinese wall was just a few miles away, and that was a godsend.
What were you doing up in Shoto?
Well, I was with the Census Bureau.
Oh.
The Census Bureau has a recurring program where they choose one, or they chose one county in every state. And they enumerated the detail of that account's business, the money, the merchandise, blah, blah, blah. And they would put that together for the business industry, and that would represent a national picture of the well-being of the business in the whole country. So it was important that we get it straight. And I stayed there during the 1949-50